coordinator for Mobile Library Nepal. I'm a program coordinator for Mobile Library Nepal together with Pooja Paudel. So we both are conducting all these different events for Mobile Library Nepal. And this is a collaboration between Asia Art Archive and Siddhartha Art Foundation. And we're bringing books and reading materials, which is more focused in art from Asia. And this is made possible by the generous support of Foundation for Art Initiatives. And what's in the Artist Library is a talk series by Mobile Library Nepal that features artists conversing with another artist and bringing their personal libraries and archives. This program aims to activate personal libraries and start conversation with artists that goes beyond the gallery spaces. And each session, we invite different artists to share their personal collection and reading materials that have been influential to them. And through this series, we hope to keep artists connected during this pandemic that prevent us experiencing the physical spaces. So this is our third session titled Archive of Muralist. So Sujan Bir Bajracharya, an artist and a fellow under Mobile Library Nepal's fellowship for Art Educators Program, will be conversation with Kiran Maharjan. And Kiran is an artist and muralist whose work revolves around the duality of public spaces. Before we begin, the program of this, the structure of the program today will be, the first half will be the conversation with Sujan and Kiran Maharjan, and the second half will be the discussion. So during the conversation, I request everyone to stay on mute, but please feel free to add your questions in the chat box so that we can discuss in the second half. And also you can directly ask your question during the discussion session. Just to start with a small introduction of Kiran, who is the guest of today, and he will be sharing his creative process with us, where documentation plays a vital role, as majority of his artworks remain embedded in public spaces. Along with his documentation, he will also discuss and show us a range of books and articles that have helped him achieve a deeper exploration in his practice. So without any further ado, over to you, Sujan.
Thank you, ma'am. So hello, everyone. So, I'm Sujan Bir Bajracharya, a fellow of Mobile Library Nepal. So today we have our special guest, Kiran Maharjan, Kiran Dai, aka known as H11235 as a street name. Hello, Dai.
Hello.
So
Hello,
I hope I got the name right. H11235.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So how has the lockdown been? How are you doing these days?
The lockdown, it's been interesting. There's a lot of introspection happening, but it's majorly trying to keep myself from killing myself from boredom, or because of the uncertainty of the situations. But overall, it has been pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear that. So Kiran Dai is a mural artist based in Lalitpur. He usually uses spray paint and acrylic colors to express his opinions and ideas on the wall. Dai, now let us know a little bit more about your art practice. So let's start with there.
Mirror art practice, I mean, it's basically, I think if I have to put it in a nutshell, I think H11235 kind of explains it. So ever since I have understood that I'm very much interested in this idea of this duality, this contradiction, wherever it may be or whatever subject it might revolve around. So that is something that I came to understand through the art practice. So I think H11235 became this synonym for what I want to do, or what I have been doing on the streets or in any other form of medium. So whenever I do tend to work on the streets or like create ideas that I have to execute on the street or do murals and things like that. I always try to go in that direction, subconsciously or like consciously. And, I think it brings a lot of uh, uh, narrative aspect to my work, which I kind of like. And it also makes it much more relevant for me as a person, because I feel that is something that I always uh, struggle with a lot, the duality aspect of it. So yeah, I think like an overview, I think that kind of explains my general art practice in a way.
So yeah, I've seen some of your murals, right? So there are quite a lot, but to point out, so I've probably seen few of your murals. So I think they are called the seven motor signs. So can you tell us a little bit about the project? So how has the site been chosen for the project?
So the basically Seven Moderate Scenes was a project that came into fruition during the time of Kathmandu Triennale. So uh, I was one of the participating artists for it, and so I. One of my major goals with that festival was to do murals in multiple parts of the city. So I really wanted to paint like from one location to another location, and just like basically do as much as I can with the given uh, given time and like budget and everything. So the concept of seven moderate sins kind of came into possession because of the mindset that I was in at that time period. And, and if you have to talk about the sites, I think it's very site specific, because I'm talking about something that is heavily influenced from the seven deadly sins. And the take on moderate sins is kind of relevant to a particular space that it basically embodied. So a piece in Patan belongs in Patan. So if you take it out and if I did the same mural in some other place, it wouldn't make sense, because it has narratives that are very much associated with Patan and the community that lives around it. So the major drive behind the sites was definitely the location, the theme of that which I was trying to do, which itself became a challenging task, because if you really find a very good wall that kind of makes sense for that particular topic, sometimes you don't get the permission to do it in that particular space. So there were very good walls that I had to let go, but all in all, I think the final sites that I did I think kind of did justice to the topic that I was trying to portray in a way. Yeah.
Okay, so I think one in the Patan Roka, right? So I think that's one with the Singha, the lions. So, so it's been like maybe 4 years so, from the project. So I see it's like being a little bit destroyed, or it has been like is. So what is your take on that?
I mean, it's uh, it's been quite some time, so I expected it to be kind of take the toll. I mean, like the mural to take a toll of time and just start deteriorating in a way. But it's interesting because it's exactly in a place where a lot of people hang out and sort of run around. You have kids running around and playing in that space. You have like old people just like sitting down and just having a conversation. So the space itself is a secluded space within the busy streets itself. So when I was doing the mural, I mean, like I think like I'm partly to blame for this, but I should have done a better job of like really making sure the wall was clean before I painted it. But I was too excited to just start it. So I think that was one of the reasons why it's in this present state, and also because um, so I was using spray paint at that time, and so it kind of left very like a good layer on the wall. And the interesting thing where like after like 2-3 months, you could see that the lower section of the mural was missing, because you could see kids going up to the wall and like scratching it and peeling it off, which must be very like fun for them. And I don't blame the kids, because like it's something that is there in a public space and they want to interact with this, which is completely fine, I think. And it's been a couple of years, so yeah, considering how ephemeral like street art is and public work is, I think so far I think it's all right considering the stage. Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings to my next question. So let's go back in time before you painted the mural. So the seven deadly sins, what were like the, since it's a huge project, so how was your pre-production stage like? So including your like color swatches, paint selection. So maybe what brand you use or the values you have planned for them to attract or to cope with the environment. So let's go through those.
So so I think the research period for the project was, I think the most enjoyable process. I think it was stress free to a certain degree, because I was getting to explore so much, the directions that I could go to, the different influences that I could bring into the work that were relevant for me and the idea that I was talking about. So just a general overview for the seven moderate sins is that, so basically at that particular time period, I was very much with the whole concept of duality, struggling to cope with the idea that like we as humans really like to be comfortable and like really like to create a life for ourselves, but along the line we tend to uh, affect others during that process. So I think that was the key starting point for me to take a dive into this seven moderate sins, where I wanted to take each of these sins, like seven of them, and explore them through the idea of moderation, but also localizing it in a certain place within the city itself. So the research process was very interesting because I was reading a lot of material. I got to watch probably anime. I was watching movies based on the same topic. I was reading philosophers, and I was going through like different influences that I have had, and like trying to bring that into the mural itself. So with the research process, I think that brought a lot of richness to the mural and narrative to the mural itself. So you had so if we talk about like the mural in Patan, it had a lot of influence about Patan and the Newar history and all of that, but also bringing in elements of Peter Bruegel and like his prints on like the seven deadly sins. That also added into a lot of factor because I really liked his work. And he belonging and coming from this like a very background of like a TV culture and being a kid and watching a lot of cartoons and everything. So I wanted to bring that into it as well. So taking like Looney Tunes characters and breaking them down to their individual identities and giving them like different like based on their like characteristics, like fitting them within the pride, wrath, and everything. So that was fun, and I was doing sketches along those lines and seeing like what could be the potential ways in that. I was doing photo manipulations of like a certain individual and sort of like breaking it down with different colors and like different stylistic options. And that was the second iteration after the whole Looney Tunes phase. And I was doing that and reading a lot of material and sort of trying to see like what each sin meant in then political like the socioeconomic climate and in the cultural situation itself, and trying to trying to bring highlight to that topic, but also like sort of you know, kind of bring a little bit of myself into the conversation as well. So the research process was very interesting. Uh, After that, I think it was all about putting all of that research knowledge and information and everything into one single image, and that was a very weird process, but also in a fun way because my designing process is very haphazard in a way. So there would be different ideas that I would like to bring together, and considering my final executed pieces are almost like collages, and that is basically what I do. So I bring in images that that I would like to be on the mural, and sort of bring them all into Photoshop. So it basically becomes like a dump where I dump everything into this particular image based on the wall that I want to paint on. And I start like cutting things off and start removing things, adding more things, and sort of like changing things around. So it's very haphazard. There's a sense of madness during the whole process, but also it's very subconscious because all of that small decision making during the designing process is dictated by the research fields. So so if a certain element needs to be really highlighted, then I really know that it needs to be highlighted during the design, during the research process. So I kind of tend to do that in the designing phase. And I think that's where a lot of the decisions, a lot of the research, a lot of the ideas that I've had in my head kind of materializes into one single image. And after that, it's just like a simple process of getting the materials right, making sure I have the right spray paint, right materials to execute the piece. And like if I don't have the right sheets, then going ahead and like mixing spray paint and getting everything that is needed to actually like materialize the piece on the wall itself. Yeah.
Hmm. So, like you mentioned earlier about the spaces, so and especially the part with the permission, since it's a public space, so some kind of procedure, some permission must be required before you start off the mural. So, can you walk us through some procedures for permission and challenges a muralist go through?
I think the challenges are always there. I think it depends upon where you want to paint, right? So I think the easiest thing you could do is, I think the easiest process is actually going up to the owner of the wall. If it's a private wall, so if it's a private wall, then you just go up to the owner, meet up with the owner, and just talk to the person and figure out like how willing they are to let you paint their wall. And that's where a lot of humbleness comes in, because like even though how much you like really want to paint that design on that wall, how strongly you feel about it, if the owner says no, then you just like aren't allowed to paint on that wall. So but most of the times people who like own walls, who have like this facade out on the street, are really supportive, and they just like go with the process of like, if they like the design, if they like what I'm talking about, then they just like allow me to paint on the wall. But there's this another aspect, like if you want to paint like, let's say, public walls or government walls, then it's the procedure becomes a little bit more complicated, where you have to go through different channels. You have to take permissions from the required people, and just make sure that that kind of is taken care of before you actually start the work. Because doing a mural, it's if you really want to execute the piece that you want to do in its like utmost fruition, I think that is absolutely necessary to be taken care of. And yeah, I mean, like there's definitely a lot of challenges that you face along the way. People not liking the design, like during the whole process of Kathmandu Triennale. I really wanted to paint this topic for Invi around my home, next to, like really close by to my house, because they had like there was a really nice wall. So I went and talked to the house owner, and the house owner wasn't there, but their son was there, and he was very much interested in this whole graffiti and street art. So he's like, yeah, I really like graffiti and street art. So like, he's like, what do you want to paint on the wall? So I show him the design, and this is the design that I have, and it's based on like the project. I explained the project to him, and he's like, yeah, I like it, but could you change this into that? Like, could you change the element of the design? And I mean, him being sort of the owner of the wall kind of said it, but then again, it doesn't make sense to change it because the person is saying it. So like, there are things like that that kind of happen along the way. So I did not end up painting on that wall, and I painted in, I think, both area. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go through some of your murals. And so यसको बारे पनि केही भनिदिनु न in the middle if you like feel like you want to say something.
So these are mostly all of the materials, all of the like smaller sketches and design works. I would like to talk about this one though. So this is not a mural. It's not actually painted on that wall. It's actually a design that I kind of like superimposed on the wall, thinking that I would get to paint on the wall. So the whole topic of the mural was love. And I really wanted to, considering it was after the earthquake, and I really wanted to talk about the issue that how slow the government was working towards like rebuilding a lot of broken down monuments and like thing, and like basically just in the restoration factor. So I really wanted to comment on that. So this was one of the early designs that I did. I really wanted to paint this in Kupandol area, but it kind of didn't really happen. But I think for a better reason, I guess, because I think I ended up doing it in some other place. Yeah, I ended up doing it in some other place. So I mean, like the design process is always like very changing, because like I did that design and I liked it, but then again I reworked on the design and did something else, and I think that came out pretty much better. And also like the whole aspect of like the color swatches is very interesting, because we as people from Nepal don't have access to like really good spray paint, so we have to make do with the local watery not so cheap anymore spray paint nowadays. So but then again, you can't really find the exact shade that you need for the exact mural. So if I need a shade that which is somewhere between like really bright yellow and a really bright I don't know, like somewhere between like a really dull orange, then I would have to actually like physically mix it to create the shade that I exactly want. So the whole process is very tedious, where you have to like check and like mix over and over again. So I think this kind of like is along that line for the new, I think. And once a design gets completed, it basically so if your design is completed, it's like 90% of the decisions have already been taken place. So this one is, I think, like basically a print that I use to paint off of for a wall in Bogota. And yeah, I think like I think it kind of represents the whole process of like how I section it out and like make sure that everything is laid out for the sketch and the design process itself. Yeah.
So what do you do with the murals that you have already designed but didn't get the permission? I think that's interesting. What do you do with that?
That's a very interesting question, because I have so every time I do a design, like the design that you saw, and when I'm invited to like to festivals and like to paint in different cities, I probably do like I probably end up with the third design that I paint on the wall. So I do have a backlog of a lot of like designs that I actually did not get to paint on the wall. So it stays in my folder in my computer as like put within the heading of like potential. So I just keep it there as a design backup if I really want to actually like paint something on a canvas or like something that I'm really like if I find a wall that I really want to paint and I really want to paint that design, uh, I just like go ahead and use that design, kind of like salvage that design in a way to at the end. Yeah.
Right. So now, so let's talk about your library. So what kind of collections you have, the books, the reading material, content, and so can you walk us through your library?
Uh, I think my library basically uh, is it's in like is in two forms. One is very like as you see like books and like physical books itself. And the second is more like digital files like PDFs, like digital like like there's a lot of like pirated, downloaded books and everything. So that is also there. So within those two things, I think it's majorly if it's papers, it's like in a digital format. It's if it's like a lot of like I do read a lot of like papers that are related to street art, graffiti, and like all of these things that have been written by a lot of like graduate students, postgraduate students, like PhD students all over the world. So I am signed up to this thing called academia.edu, and I have so I basically set it up in such a way that if there is a keyword like graffiti, street art, like things related within my thing, like murals and everything, uh, if any of the papers with those taglines kind of is uploaded to the website, I get an email along that line. So I get emails related to like basically I was reading this paper on the emergence of political graffiti in Athens in the wake of the economic crisis that was happening there. So that was a paper that I recently read about it, and it's interesting to kind of like I find it very like liberating to kind of be reading about these things because uh, I feel that there's a lot of context that goes behind image that goes on the wall. And a lot of people don't really tend to see that context. And reading about all of these papers kind of gives me like a better knowledge of whatever is happening around the world in a very like studied sort of like researched form. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of read. And I do read some fiction work, and so with the works that I do, I like to have this like whole narrative aspect to my works. And with the seven moderate sins, I think that was very crucial to have this narrative that people can sort of pinpoint and read about a mural itself. So narration ended up becoming this very interesting thing for me. So I've been, I'm so much interested in this image, like this whole process of telling stories through images. So I do consume a lot of like comic books and graphic novels, and that is also something that I'm exploring in as well as a form, as a art practice to like share some ideas that I've had that I really don't think can do with murals. And like I read graphic novels a lot, and I've been reading presently this graphic novel called Blue in Green. I think it was the recent Eisen Award winner, like a graphic novel, and it's kind of interesting because it borderlines to the narrative style that I'm very much interested in with the artistic process itself. So the whole library is very vast. It's basically like it's vast in a sense, but it's just like it's either like research papers, like fiction, or like something that I read within the line of like graphic novels or like comic books or stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. How long have you been in the street?
Working on the streets.
Yeah.
Actively, inactively, I would say like 10, 11 years, I think. Yeah, because I remember the first piece that I did was in my high school years, which has been more than 10 years, I think.
Very cool, and that's a long time. So during that time, so with your experience, can you tell us about the relation between the authority and the street artist? I'm sure it has been some changes, or it is still the same.
Uh, the concept of authority, I think, changes with what you work with. Presently, I think I'm more of a muralist than a graffiti artist or a street artist, I think. So, but when I was starting off, like during my early years, I was doing graffiti. I was tagging around the city. I was doing uh, like pieces without permission, like here and there. So I think the whole concept of authority changes with that, with the art practice. Uh, During the early years, I think it was, I mean, I was pretty young as well. So there's the whole act of being part of the culture and making a mark on the city that you live in that seems too big for you. And trying to curb your uh, identity crisis in certain ways, I think was the beginning phases of the process that I was involved in. And I came to realize that later on because like whatever I was doing was basically within those lines. And the sense of authority at that time period was very loose in a sense and something that you wouldn't want to associate with. So the whole act of like doing graffiti or like writing was a sense of was a form of rebellion, and it it was all about going against the authority and doing something that the authority doesn't like, right? And with the process and with much exploration, I think I've come to this point where authority seems not such a distant thing. It's something that is always going to be there, and something that we always have to deal with in a good way or a bad way. But uh, presently, with the whole political climate and the recent incidents that have happened within the scene itself have really brought this topic into highlight of how the authority is undermining the artistic practice of public artists, muralists, and it's good that the conversation is flowing now, and a lot of it is positive towards the practice of mural making. And in a way, it's a good conversation, but I think it's upon the task. I think it's upon the community itself to charter a path that leads us to a place where we can say that Kathmandu or Nepal itself is a safe haven for artists who like to paint in public spaces. Because if you look at the history of Kathmandu Valley, specifically, if you look at it, a lot of things do happen publicly, and public form of art is an integral part of the culture and the society that we surround ourselves with. So with this new contemporary and this like new form that has been sort of like brought in through the Western ideologies and like from the Western mindset is becoming very localized and with local experiences and local ideas, and the authority that we call the people high above needs to understand, I think, that it's not something that they can just like sweep under the rug. I think it's um, more in has to do with like the present culture making itself. So I don't know. I feel like I would want everybody to be like happily painting murals. Like I would want like a safe haven for all of the muralists and like street artists to be like walking around joyfully with like paintbrushes in their hands and just like painting different walls here and there, so that there is this space for like us to like say what we want to say in a very in a very safe environment. But with the authoritarian rule that we have right now, I don't think it's possible for us, to be honest.
Okay, so we are almost at the end of our first half. So before we move on to our Q&A section, so do you have anything you like to share at the end?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, like, considering we are talking about like documentation and research process itself, I think like it's very absolutely essential to mention like why it's absolutely essential to document street works and like the pieces that we do out on the street, because at the end of the day, street art, mural making, and any other form of like public art is very ephemeral, and it might be here today and it might not be there tomorrow. So coming back to the whole Kathmandu Triennale, like 7 moderate sins, I think I did 5 murals and 2 paintings for that. I think we only have 1, 2, and I don't know, maybe only 3 murals, 2 murals that are surviving right now. Um, the rest have been like covered up, or like the wall has been brought down to make space for like uh, for uh, for a shop or something. And that's I mean, like that's what happens. And it's very essential to document a street piece from as soon as it's done, so that it has a place in the digital world, and that is something that has been is relevant for anybody who works in a street or graffiti scene or like mural scene. Is that uh, a public piece lives in 2 different worlds. One is in a physical space, and another is in the digital space. So even though the mural might not be there today, once it's in the digital world, it kind of gets shared around over and over again, and it gets relevant. Even though the piece might not be there anymore, it's there in the digital world. And that is how that is how basically like the street movement kind of took this direction of becoming this global movement in a sense, where because with the emergence of like internet at that early stages, people were sending emails to each other with the images of the work that they did, like bombing and everything, and we cannot like, I mean, like, not to go to the overboard, but like we cannot like overstate the relevance of like Martha Cooper and all these people who were documenting like the early stages of like street art and like graffiti during that time. So like in that sense, I think it's it's absolutely crucial to document the process, and I think a lot of people who are within this art scene of like street art, graffiti, or like mural understand the relevance of like uh, documentation, because like everybody knows that like you do one piece today and it's not there tomorrow. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Zai. So now let me hand over to Mahima ma'am for the Q&A section. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for beautiful sharing, Kiran and Sujan. We have a question from Samira, but I think, Samira, do you like to just ask by yourself, since we don't have so many participants and also lots of questions? So.
Sure. Thank you so much for your discussion. It was really nice. Sujan, your questions were really nicely asked, and it was nice to, on the one hand, like hear about your ideas that drive you and motivate you, and then also to kind of see what you're reading and referencing and how that affects your practice. But I think something that was kind of mentioned at the beginning was about how you also document the site in which you work, not only perhaps after the mural is put up, but I'm also guessing engaging with the site before. And I'm curious about how you do research about the site and the community that lives there, and like, who is it that you speak to? Is there, do you read about it? Do you spend time in it? Do you speak to the communities there? Do you visit the bureaucratic offices that perhaps have maps or archives of that neighborhood? So I'm just curious about how you familiarize and do research of neighborhoods, because it would be so exciting in your archive to see the archives of all the places in which you also work.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question, because that entails within this whole a piece becoming part of the space at the end of the day, right? So I think, so if I have to go back to the whole Kathmandu Triennale, like Seven Moderate project, uh, the documentation of that particular site was very much within the line of something like places that I already knew a lot about, like let's say like Patan itself, because I live in Patan, I know this place, and I feel like that was the piece that really embodied the whole aspect of research and like site specific mural in a sense, because I understand the mindset that was being shared by the people around, and being from the same community, I really wanted to tackle that idea. So that was, I think, a research that was embodied from like childhood, in a sense, if I may say. Um, but if it's the place that is like really away, like if I'm just like visiting a space, so um, then it's more in line with the people that live around it. Definitely, the people that live around it. What kind of background do they belong to? What are the implications? What have happened within this space has uh, that has a sort of narrative aspect to what the city means and what the city is all about to the people in a way. And I think cities do tell a lot, like structures do tell a lot about a place in a way. So, I mean, like the best example would be for the Kochi Biennale mural itself, because I painted on a facade that was probably about more than 100 years old. And that was a barrel reconditioning place, and that has been running for like so many years. And the people inside were all like nitty and gritty. Like when you go to that space, it's all about continuing this practice that has been going on for such a long time by these people whose like generations have been working in the same space over and over again. But also the physical structure itself says a lot, because when you walk into the space, you would see the handstands where like a person has touched that spot for like thousands of times. So it does really say a lot about it. So like going to that place, talking to those people, and understanding the history of the structure that you're about to paint in, I think it's absolutely crucial, because like you just don't want to go into a space and just paint that doesn't really say what the space is all about, or like um, the doesn't tell the narrative, because at the end of the day the mural is going to be there forever, as long as the people want it, and it becomes part of the landscape and people have to live with it. So I think it's absolutely crucial to understand and like be very respectful about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So now, yeah, Sharare wanted to like continue with some more questions
I
that
do. I have more questions.
yeah.
Hi, Kiran and Susan.
I
Thank you for sharing and for really laying down the process, and Susan for such insightful questions. So Kiran, I was wondering if you could share. I've always wanted to ask, but like, in terms of the kind of, Susan, can you go back to the presentation with Kiran's works, the murals? And Oh, thank you, Pooja. No, can you go back to one of the collage pieces? It could be any one of them. I think you had 3 or 4 different pieces. Maybe the first, the one that you were talking about at first. The first one, the one that was the blue one. A little ahead. Yeah, that one. I think we have to mute something. Or even this one. So I was wondering, the kinds of ways in which you do this kind of collage work. I would love if you could break down one of these in detail. So it's sort of the way in which you, and any one that you select perhaps, but the kind of references you're using, because it feels like you've almost collected these images and then you've sort of cut them apart and then you put them back together to tell another story. So it would be so amazing to hear a sort of detailed breakdown of these references and then how they're coming back together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part that we missed, I think, when we are talking about the murals. And I'm glad you're asking this. And so if I have to explain the whole process itself, I think like the first thing is like the wall itself, like the wall dictates everything. The wall says what it wants. The wall is going to say like, I want this kind of design. So that's where it's going to be. So this particular wall is on the wall of the school. I forgot the name of the school in Mughal Bazaar. Like I forgot the name of the school. So it's on the gully behind the school. So I really like this wall because of two particular reasons. Because one, I have seen this wall for such a long time. I really wanted to paint here, and other people had already painted on it, so I really wanted to paint here. Number two is because it's as close as you can get to Lalitpur Center itself without actually painting on historic landmarks. And number three, because it really, this space was, I think, centered to the topic that I really wanted to talk about, which was like wrath. And I think like it kind of made sense that this wall would be for that particular work for topic. So so in this mural, I think like during the design process, it's all about like bringing in images that kind of relate to it. So like the color red representing rat, the bear, which is like is a derivative, which I used a document that kind of sourced like different animals that represent different sins in a certain way. So bear was for that, and especially like you have the fist, which is a physical embodiment to a certain degree of anger. Then you have like the Peter Bruegel print, Peter Bruegel's like etching on a reverse in one of the section. Then you have like the bear on an enlarged form. Then you have the calligraphy Ranjana Lipima that says like rat in Nepali. Then you had like for the fun aspect, you have like Daffy Duck under one of the section, and you have all of these colors that kind of try to bring an image together that speaks the narrative that I wanted to see. And like the image, I'm like most of the things are very like straightforward. I would say like the red, the fist in a certain way. Daffy Duck, I mean, like a lot. I mean, I'm not sure, like I'm generalizing, but Daffy Duck is a very angry character, so I thought that would be the apt character that I would want to include in it. And every other mural for Seven Morted Sins has a Looney Tunes character. It's just like somewhere hidden within it. And like that is something that I really wanted to do. Like there are things within the mural that are there and visible, non-visible. But if you like really stand there and look at the mirror and kind of like try to figure out what is being told, like what I want to say, like then you can. But then again, it's absolutely not necessary to do that as well. You can just look at the mural and say that, oh, it's a mural about a bear in a red background. Yep, I like it, and they can just walk away, which is absolutely fine. But then again, I feel like there needs to be a lot of content within the mural. It's just shouldn't be a pretty picture, So And I think like one of the strongest things that I put in this mural was like, if you can see, there's the hand in the middle, and right to the hand there's this image of a stone which is in cyan and black within the blackish whitish like semicircle. So that stone itself, the representation of stone itself is very it was very essential for this narrative, because I belong from Patan, and I know and I remember and I've heard a lot of stories about this, where whenever there would be a jatra or something or a festival, there would be a lot of fights happening between like the different tolls that would be here. So it would be, I remember like I went to one of my maternal uncles like this and Mama Gorma Tati, and it was late in night, and we had to like go all the way around because we could not go from one tool to another because there were fights happening between that tool. And the relevance of stone is very crucial here, because I remember my friend's mother kind of saying that she was in her house and she was like looking out from her like window, and she remembers seeing this fight that was happening between like people, and there was this one guy being chased by this like group of guys, and this guy just like who was being chased just fell right in front of her house, and she was like in her house like looking from the window, and the guy just like tripped and fell, and this another guy who was chasing him just like picked up a rock and just like laid it on him. And that story kind of stuck with me, and because I physically, I mean, like when I was a kid, I went through the repercussions of all of that, and like just hearing that story like made it so much more concrete, like how extreme it was at that time period. And I think like just to bring that topic into the mural was necessary, because it was all about that, and it kind of tells the history of this communal violence that was happening, whether or not it was due to intoxicated people. I mean, like it's up to, yeah, but I think it tells a history about like the Patan area itself, and I really wanted that on the mural. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That actually illuminates a lot. I think that this is to the Adarsha, no? The के आदर्श भन्ने the one to दरबार के भन्छ मङ्गाहिटीको पछाडि.
Exactly, yeah.
So this is that gully in the back.
Yeah, in the gully, yeah.
Right.
It's not as vibrant and like bright as it is right now. I think most of the damages have been done by the birds that kind of loom around on the wires on top. So I got poked on my head twice while painting this mural. So yeah, they have a lot of addition to the mural. Yeah.
No, that's a nice way to see it. An addition. Thank you. That was great. I've always wanted to know more. It'd be so amazing if you actually created something that documented all the murals and then had a little bit of text. Do you have something like that?
I do have text. I do have like a text that explains every other mural, the things that are there, the narrative that is being explained within these murals. And I do, yeah.
I think Dipti has a question as well. So maybe we can. I'll ask you more about that. but Dipti, do you want me to read it out while I'm unmuted, or do you want to share since we have?
Hi. It's just that a lot of dogs are barking, so I don't. And if you had any follow-up questions, you can do that, and I can definitely ask mine later. So.
No, totally go, please.
Okay, it's a bit long, but I'll just read it. But before I do that, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. My neighborhood dogs are also thanking you. And also Sujan, I think you did a really good job of facilitating the conversation. I'm just wondering if you had to capture and convey like this spirit of street art movement in Nepal at the current moment, how would you do so? Or like, how can the public understand the pulse of street art or artists in Nepal right now? Because I feel like maybe a couple of years ago, I feel like there was this energy about street art, right? Like it was so palpable as you walk down the streets. And now as you walk down the streets, a lot of it has endured a lot, and that has a very different affect to it, obviously. So I just wanted you to sort of reflect on that and share your thoughts on that, and especially trying to think of it beyond the Kathmandu Valley, because I know that a lot of the collectives are also doing a lot of work outside of the valley, and which a lot of us who aren't privy to that probably weren't aware. But what does that look like outside of the valley? Ani arko question say, I think I've also heard you talk about political environment for street art and censorship, state censorship, and all of that, right? And do you think it would be sort of counterintuitive to want a safe haven for street art to a certain degree, especially when it comes to artworks that are actually trying to challenge status quo or are provocative, however one chooses to define it, right? I'm not sure if I'm articulating it this well, but I feel like there's this friction between state and artist when it comes to street art that isn't just a black and white, oh, it should be, there should be no censorship and there should be censorship. I think there is something in the gray area in which like street art definitely thrives, at least in Nepal, and I'm sure elsewhere as well. So I have these two sort of questions or thoughts going on. But yeah, thank you so much for this.
Yeah, I think that was more than two questions. I think that was like 3, 4 questions. Could you like re sort of like articulate like the first question on it, because I think like I kind of got lost for the first question.
Maybe we can break this. So first question, like it's not like a question, but more like something that I've been thinking about since like coming back for my field work. I feel like a couple of years ago there was this spirit of street art. As you walk down the street, you could feel it it was very palpable. Now, like a couple of years of wear and tear, right, in the existing works have also created a very different affect for that. So I wanted you to reflect on, in that context, reflect on like the spirit of street art movement right now in Nepal. And this probably should not limited to just the Kathmandu Valley. So to keep boida, so kosto boida, so भनेर बुझ्न खोजिरा हैन. So maybe that, and then the second one maybe don't even need.
I'll try to get to the second one as well, because like the whole aspect of like the street art and the censorship was very interesting, I think. So I mean, like for your first question, I think I can only speak from personal experience, and I would like to put it out that I don't speak for the whole community itself. Everybody has their own like take on this, and I think that's the best part about it. I think it's true. It's true that there was this very energetic sort of I don't know. You definitely, when you walk down the streets of like Kathmandu, Anipata, Netauta, you definitely knew that there was a lot of energy going around with the murals and street art and all of that. That was happening there. Yes, definitely. There is happening, but as you said, it's kind of it's not exactly the same. It's definitely not exactly the same, and I think this is a topic that comes over again, and like we have talked about it, and I think like with the recent talks that I've done also, we have come to the point where we think about like what has happened in the past and like what is happening right now. I think me personally too. I mean, like I wouldn't like to. I wouldn't like it, but like I want to say that I would want to be more active on the street that I'm in right now, but I haven't been. Like I haven't, and like that's something that I would like to publicly, kind of say it out loud. And I think it's a situational context for me, and I think in spite of that, there are few people who have been kind of like doing things along the street line Masaini. And I think that is interesting in its own way, because I feel like there's been a shift. I think there has been a shift with these new like definitely people who are younger than me, who have come into the scene and like are bringing their own take on like what they would want to do. And I think that's really interesting. Exactly, it's not the same thing. I mean, like whatever we were doing back in the days. I mean, like I'm speaking like as if I'm like 50, but like whatever we were doing, it's not exactly the same. So in that way, I think it's definitely changed a lot. But I think present state ma चाहिँ नि, I mean, like I wish there was more happening street scene ma चाहिँ नि. But I think it's something. I think it's a question for a lot of like people within the scene itself to kind of think about as well. I think in a way. And yeah, I think did I answer your questions? I think I went on tangent there.
Yeah, you did. I mean like the whole like this idea of like the artist archive, for I think for much of street artists, like their memories of what happened is also part of that archival sort of thing, right? Like something so like हामीले कुरा गरिरहेको हुन्छ नि त, street art has this sort of ephemeral quality because like things get washed over and all of that. So I feel like when it comes to like archiving street art, or even anything to do with history of street art in Nepal, like you guys and your memories are really important part of that. And so and historically Puni, I think it's important to look at what happens, like the ebbs and flows of it. And yeah, I don't think it's always possible to have like this high energy sort of thing going on, so I'm not trying to put pressure for you to come out to the streets and be more active.
Yeah, I'm definitely got a note, so yeah.
Yeah, no, but thank you so much for that, and that definitely answers it. And the second part I think is about like the political environment for street art and censorship, which you've talked about I think often, like, and recently as well you've been talking about it a bit more. So I was just wondering, is that counterintuitive to want a safe haven for street art, especially when it comes to artworks that do challenge status quo, are provocative and perhaps will always be censored in some kind of political regime? And if they're not being censored, then that's actually suspicious, right? What gets censored and what doesn't get censored in a particular kind of political cultural regime is really important to look at, right? And so I feel like this friction between like state censorship and street art is always important. And in black and white भन्दा पनि ग्रेमा operate गर्छ जस्तो लाग्छ कि. अनि what are your thoughts on that, and sort of thinking about what has been happening so far पनि नेपालमा?
So when I say safe haven, I specifically mean this is very sort of like elaborately. I mean, I'm taking my imagination on a wild run here, but I mean a place where a situation where I don't have to go and ask for the permission of the government to paint a wall in a public space, and also a place where the local community is so welcoming that the procedure doesn't have to be stuck with paperwork. So it could be very intuitive, organic, and yeah, very, I mean, like as it should be in a way. So and I think like you have touched a point here about like the whole aspect of state censorship, and like about like some political artworks that could be very radical in its context. And I think that's a very interesting situation with the. I think it's a dichotomy that we have with street art in a sense, street art, mural graffiti in a sense, that I don't think we share with a lot of, with the other art movement, I must say, if I can push it to that extent, because the whole aspect of as I said, I did graffiti. I come from, I didn't do that much, but I have done it. I understand the mindset of being a graffiti writer, and I understand what it means. Graffiti writers don't call themselves artists. We just give them that jargon because they paint and they use colors, but they don't consider themselves as artists. They consider themselves as writers, and they write on wall, and that is what it is. And the whole graffiti movement is very, as I said, it's completely like all about rebellion and anarchism and like going against the authority. And that is a very interesting thing because here we want a place where the government, we want the local authorities to recognize us as contributing parts of the art scene and of society. But we also have this secondary side of us that is also ingrained in all about being against the authority, rebellion, and all of that. And it's very difficult to bring those two entities within a same platform. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges I think that we have as a community that has been going on for like 10 years or so, to how do we move forward from here, where there is definitely, we see again and again that there is a clash between the community and the society and and the art community itself. And I think that that is something that we have to tackle. I mean, like, I don't know how that is going to play out, but it's absolutely necessary to understand that uh, we cannot throw, and I really mean it. We cannot throw graffiti under the bus for the sake of a large scale murals and street art. We cannot, because it is as integral to the whole scene as ABCD is for a person who is like writing in a sense. So that is crucial, and that is the situation that we are in. And coming back to what you were saying about like the censorship aspect, Malsaini, I think, like, you know, like this is a situation that I have exercised in my like head a lot, because we want murals to be legal. We want street art to be legal here. Uh, but then again, there is this aspect of bureaucracy and like processes that will somehow counter what the artist is trying to say freely. So if I want to paint a public wall, and if it's a very critical, it's a piece with a very critical dialogue about a certain issue that is happening, and if I take it to the authorities and say that I want to paint a mural there, like give me authority to do this, and they might just like say no. And that is a form of like state censorship that happens in a way. And I think like even worse is the present political situation where the whole government has gone to this like authoritarian position where you cannot even ridicule the president or like any other like people in higher positions, and that takes away a lot of freedom on what we have to say and be critical uh, about these people. Because at the end of the day, because like I don't believe that street art can change, you know, like dramatic way the whole political climate, but it is a driving force behind the change. It's and we have seen it over and again, like in different situations in all over the world, that street art and graffiti and like public imagery plays a very vital role in sustaining a movement or a issue in itself. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think I don't really have a concrete answer to like what could be the best situation to do all of this, but I mean, I think like it's all up to us. I think, like, to how do we take it further? Yeah.
Thank you
Yes,
so
did
much.
I?
Yeah, that was yeah, that was very helpful.
Thank you so much for your question, Dipti. And I'm a bit aware of the time because we're kind of exceeded. We're supposed to finish at 5 o'clock, but yeah, Kamal is raising hand, so maybe we can take last question from Kamal. Please make it short, and then
Also, Ruby. Oh, Kamal and Ruby, though. You're in one.
Ruby. Yeah, it's same one.
Me, Kamal. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I? Yeah. Sure. Okay, मैले चाहिँ एक्चुअली मलाई बुझ्नु मन लागेको चाहिँ उहाँको मिडियमको एक्सप्लोरेसनको बारेमा एउटा चाहिँ अनि उहाँले एक्सपेरिमेन्ट कि अरू मिडियमहरूमा पनि गर्नु खोज्नु भइरहेछ कि म्युरलहरू भन्ने एउटा क्वेसन थियो अनि अर्को चाहिँ कोलाबोरेटिभ रूपमा पनि अरू हुन्छ नि अरू के अरे कोलाबोरेटिभ रूपमा अरू डिफ्रेन्ट फिल्डहरूसँग रहेर पनि गर्नु भइरहेछ कि छैन भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ बुझ्नु मन लागेको छ मलाई एउटा अनि त्यति नै भन्नु थ्याङ्क यू
Thank you for your question. मेरो art practice चाहिँ नि of course majorly चाहिँ नि अब mural र street art नै भयो त्यो बाहेक चाहिँ नि मेरो mural चाहिँ नि अलिकति medium चाहिँ अलिकति change चाहिँ अलिअलि भइरहेछ मैले देखे अनुसार मैले चाहिँ नि अब directly चाहिँ नि change गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने चाहिँ गरेको चाहिँ होइन तर अब यो डिजिटल एस्थेटिक्सको कुरा जुन चाहिँ नि मेरो म्युरलमा चाहिँ एकदम एक्सटेन्सिभली चाहिँ युज भइरहेको हुन्छ त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ नि म त्यो पर्टिकुलर एक्सप्लोरेसनमा चाहिँ अलिकति छिरिरहेको छु अहिले चाहिँ नि सो कलर लेयरिङदेखि लिएर त्यो भिजुअली कलरहरूको डिफ्रेन्सेसहरू अनि त्यसपछि त्यसलाई चाहिँ नि डिफ्रेन्ट मिडियमको थ्रुबाट एक्सप्रेस गर्ने नट जस्ट लाइक थ्रु पेन्टिङ होइन पेन्ट मात्र गरे मात्र होइन अरू मिडियमबाट पनि गर्न सकिन्छ भन्ने हिसाबमा चाहिँ नि मैले कपाल अफ इयर्स अगो पनि अलिकति एक्सप्लोर गरेको छ त्यो कोलाज त्यो डिकन्स्ट्रक्सन को आइडियामा चाहिँ नि मैले लाइक वुडन प्यानल पिसेसहरूमा गरेर काटेर अनि त्यसलाई चाहिँ ह्याङ गरेर पनि गर्न चाहिँ गरेको छु सो द्याट इज म्युरलको मिडियम चेन्ज एस्पेक्टमा भयो त्यो बाहेक चाहिँ अघि नै भने जस्तै अब न्यारेटिभ एस्पेक्ट चाहिँ अलिकति इन्ट्रेस्टिङ भएको भएर चाहिँ नि त्यो ग्राफिक नोभल अनि न्यारेटिभ लाइक भिजुअल स्टोरी टेलिङको एस्पेक्टमा चाहिँ नि अलिक इन्ट्रेस्ट भएको भएर चाहिँ आइम काइन्ड अफ एक्सप्लोरिङ आइम भर्खर छिरा जस्तो लाग्छ सो देयर आर अ लट अफ बेटर पिपल हु आर डुइङ इट लाइक भिजुअल न्यारेटिभ खालीमा सो म चाहिँ त्यो पनि अलिकति एक्सप्लोर गरिरहेको छु अनि कोलाबोरेसनको कुरामा चाहिँ नि म चाहिँ नि H11235 भए पनि म चाहिँ नि मेरो टिम क्रुसँग चाहिँ नि कोर आर्ट कलेक्टिभ भन्ने चाहिँ नि हामीले चाहिँ रन गर्छौँ सो द्याट इज KOR कोर आर्ट कलेक्टिभ अनि हामी चाहिँ नि 5-6 जना छौँ अनि हामीले चाहिँ नि अब हाम्रो स्ट्रिटमा चाहिँ नि के कसो गर्नु मिल्छ पोसिबिलिटिजहरू हेर्ने त्यो अनुसार चाहिँ नि एज अ टिम चाहिँ हामी काम गर्छौँ त्यो बाहेक चाहिँ नि अब डिफ्रेन्ट अरू आर्ट कलेक्टिभ्सहरू छ अब यो पाटनमा काठमाडौँमा सो उनीहरूसँग पनि टाइम टु टाइम वेमा चाहिँ नि कोलाबोरेटिभ रूपमा चाहिँ काम गर्दा हामी छौँ आई थिङ्क मैले एन्सर गरेँ होला सायद
हजुर एकदमै के अरे अनि मलाई एउटा सानो अर्को पनि सोध्नु मन लाग्छ जुन चाहिँ हाम्रो म्युरल पहिलादेखि गरेको हाम्रो हिस्ट्री आर्ट हिस्ट्री अनुसार चाहिँ सो त्योबाट चाहिँ कुनै तपाईँलाई एकदम इन्ट्रेस्टिङ लागेको अथवा तपाईँलाई कुनै इन्फ्लुएन्स भएको छ भने यसो सेयर गर्नु मिल्छ भने इन्सपायरिङ खालको तपाईँलाई पर्सनली
नेपालमा भएको अथवा
ओके हजुर
नेपालमा भन्नु भएको कि लाइक एज अ
होल वर्ल्ड तपाईँले जताको भने इन्फ्लुएन्स इन्सपायर
I don't know. I mean, like, not necessarily. Like, I'm just trying to pick one. You're select so that I can give you an example of why it is relevant. I think Miro like Saini. I think like I think like only the holistic answer हुन्छ होला यो चाहिँ अलिकति because considering अब यो स्ट्रिट आर्ट म्युरलमा लागेको हुनाले चाहिँ नि मलाई चाहिँ नि डिफ्रेन्ट सिटिजहरूमा चाहिँ इन्भाइट चाहिँ गरिरहेको हुन्छ ठाउँ ठाउँमा पेन्ट गर्न यताउता सो त्यो प्रोसेसमा चाहिँ नि डिफ्रेन्ट आर्टिस्टहरू चाहिँ भेट्न पाइरहेको हुन्छ कि होइन सो डिफ्रेन्ट आर्टिस्टहरू भेट्दाखेरि चाहिँ नि सो हुन्छ नि अब काठमाडौँ नेपालमा बसेको एकदमै ग्रासरुटबाट स्टार्ट गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ नि अब अनलाइन एक्सेस हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ यु सी अ लट अफ दिस लाइक खतरा खतरा आर्टिस्टहरूको कामहरू देखिरहेको हुन्छ अनि तर एउटा पर्सेप्सन हुन्छ कि लाइक यस्तो आर्टिस्ट हो त्यस्तो आर्टिस्ट हो भन्ने हिसाबमा होइन एउटा वी पुट देम अन अ प्लेटफर्म इन अ सेन्स अनि यो रिसेन्ट लाइक यो बिफोर दिस होल वर्ल्ड टर्न अप्स एन्ड डाउन यो कोरोना हुन अगाडि चाहिँ नि 2019तिर चाहिँ नि आई वाज इन्भाइटेड यता वाराणसीमा चाहिँ नि म्युरल प्रोजेक्ट थियो अनि आई वाज इन्भाइटेड टु पेन्ट अ वल देयर अनि 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 इट वाज इन्ट्रेस्टिङ फर मी बिकज चाहिँ नि म वाराणसी जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ नि आई वाज working on another commission piece that I had to go through like so much sleepless nights and everything. And Goira Varanasima, I had to jump on to another mural that was like massively, I mean, it was big and especially it was very tough. But the context is that, and there was this artist like who I really looked up to, Mex Van this so Australian artist, so Mex Van this and he was there, and especially he was painting a wall, paint was that too, and I got to meet him, and so I like we interacted a lot, like he's a good friend, and so त्यो बेसिसमा चाहिँ के भयो भन्दाखेरि मेरो वाराणसी जान अगाडि टाइममा चाहिँ नि mindset चाहिँ के हो त I was doing so I was pushing myself to such a degree anyways I was pushing myself to such a degree that like I wanted like since I am committed into this, I would do as much as I can within my physical capacity to do it. And since त्यो भएको हुँदाखेरि त्यो प्रोसेसमा चाहिँ नि वाराणसी जान अगाडिसम्म चाहिँ नि सबै कुरा हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ नि त्यो I was questioning that idea of mine. Okay? And त्यसपछि वाराणसी गएपछि I got to meet the artist and like such a nice guy, and I'm like not even talking about the work itself. Like it's not about the work at the end of the day. Like he was such a nice guy, and त्यसपछि the humbleness that the person had was very like it was very like inspiring to a degree. And he like talking to the kids and he like locals around that's another common and like a person of that stature and especially that presence on in like in a world go street art scene and he meeting him and so sort of like talking to him, and especially that kind of became this realization that like everything is like worth it at the end, because like even though like you're like investing so much of the time and like all of that, it helps to be humble at the end of the day, and it helps to be very realize that whatever you're doing is very precious, because a lot of people don't get to do what they love at the end of the day. So like I wouldn't be like say like example of the mural like I think instance ko rupma chahi ni holistically answer gardakheri I think that would be it in a sense. Yeah, I think answer gareko होला sir.
Thank you.
Huncha, thank you so much. With this, we really come to the end of our program today. And I'd like to thank Kiran and Sujan, both of you, for a wonderful session. And also like to announce that our next What's in the Artist Library will be next month. This time we're going to bring someone like who's been practicing in art field for so long time, but that's going to be a surprise for now. So to know that surprise, please join us next time. And I see in the audience lots of art community friends and our group from Reading Circle. I'd like to thank them all for joining us today. And Mobile Library have all the books collection in Mobile Library Nepal.librarica.com. So I'd also like you all to go and look for our collections there. And for now, Mobile Library Nepal is in Bikalpa Art Center, and we're soon going to move to Gallery M Cube. So please do come visit our library. So with this, thank you all for joining today, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you. Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.